We're going to get started back again. So Gregor came to the summit in February and gave an initial presentation, and essentially this is his final report with more findings, and we have his colleague Chris here as well, in case we do have any technical difficulties.
There we go. Okay. So good evening, and glad to join you, although I really would prefer to be there in person, having enjoyed the time at the summit earlier, and would love to come back and see Wabush and Labrador City without the snow. But I will present, and you are joined by Chris DeBow from our firm, who will be there to carry on with discussions and questions afterwards. So this is really the same presentation that was given at the summit, and it is based on work that we did with Toby and Lydia and those at the Labrador West Chamber of Commerce. And we were asked to put together a presentation that would kick off the summit and really bring into focus what the opportunities are in economic terms, what this could really mean for the local and provincial economy, and really show how there are a number of pieces that need to be put together at the same time for these opportunities to really succeed. And that if that happens, show how big a deal this could be. I will say, we started off by speaking to all of the main people, the companies involved in the mining operations, Newfoundland Hydro, housing developers, and many others, municipal, officials, elected officials, and staff, to really understand, what some of the developments that they're looking at could involve. And what I'll walk through is really four main pieces. It's the energy supply requirements, the electric transmission lines that are needed. It's the investments by the three main companies involved in mining, a need for more residential housing development, and then it's sort of a catch-all, but it is infrastructure and services in the community that are needed to go along with that. So I'll walk through those four main things and pull them together into sort of some summary findings and numbers for you, and then put that in context, because when you hear about some of the announcements and developments and plans, it's not always easy to grasp what that could really mean locally and provincially, and that's a message that needs to be sort of broadcast across the province, and get that will help get partners and other stakeholders on board. Ultimately, this will lead to a joint effort in order to develop some of the solutions to challenges, natural challenges that you would have in a sort of a growth opportunity for the area. I know it's a sunny night in Labrador West, and this does involve some economics, some economic statistics. I will try and keep that light and focus on how exciting they are. Hopefully that'll continue to stimulate your thinking and discussion around this. I will break it down a bit in terms of locally, so what this means for Labrador West, but also the provincial scope. And everything that I'm about to walk through is about new economic activity. It's not about what already exists and is already happening in Labrador West. This would be new, developments in the coming years. As I mentioned, it's based on, the interviews and information we gathered from many of the key players, documents and resources that were available, and some Statistics Canada resources. In particular, to paint a picture of what this means economically, we do rely on modeling. Statistics Canada models help to generate the economic statistics that I'm going to show you. I will start with the punchline. So this is actually the high level, summary. And I'll slow down on this slide just to explain everything that we have. And then, the next few slides will be much easier to digest. So, this is about the four pieces that I mentioned: the energy, the company investments, housing development, and a basket of infrastructure and services. The way we think about it is initially a lot of investment that needs to happen. And this looks like it would be over the next 5 to 6 years, and I'll explain that in a moment. So we can think about it as investment or capital expenditures. And then once all of those investments are in place, so transmission line for energy is in place, companies have invested in their operations, equipment, and so on, and housing development, then we think of how it's going to operate from there on. So there's sort of a capital investment period in the early years, and then after that, an operational period that carries on from there. So just looking on the capital side, we've kind of focused in on just a few key statistics. So where you see direct, that means Labrador West, and then province is all of Newfoundland and Labrador. And then we have three sort of typical economic statistics: added value, or gross domestic product. That's the GDP on the first line. That's the value that stays in the community. It's kind of the truest measure of what is added, from the investments. Then jobs, of course, and we express those in full-time equivalents. And then the third line is about taxes, and this includes local municipal taxes, provincial taxes, and some federal taxes all together. And we just keep it simple. We just have a tax line. And what I've done is highlighted just the local jobs number through the next few slides. Maybe if that's the only thing to focus on, that gives you an idea of the magnitude and how each of the pieces, what they represent in the total. So on the capital side, if all of these plans and developments roll out, it would be very busy. There could be upwards of 2,000 workers working at the companies, making changes there, the transmission line development, housing construction, municipal infrastructure, other businesses, starting to expand, and so on. And then operationally, once all those things are in place, a little bit less activity, but still, substantial, about 1,400 full-time jobs locally going forward. So it would be, bringing Labrador to a new level of economic activity that would carry on from that point. So yeah, the next few slides break that down. You can keep the 2,000 plus on the jobs on the capital side and the 1,400 on the operational side. Keep those numbers in mind. And the first piece is the energy supply. So in speaking with Newfoundland Hydro, they are, committed to and obligated to deliver power, but a decision needs to be made around building the transmission line. It starts with a decision really from the mining companies about what capacity they need and what level of investment would go into those lines and what type of lines. But Newfoundland Hydro says that will roughly cost about $1 billion to put in place. Now, funny enough, there's almost no operational side to this. They would allocate one full-time person, to oversee that line once it's built. So this is really, a capital project over the coming years, and Newfoundland Hydro said that could be in place in 5 to 6 years. And that's really why we have that 5 to 6 year time frame. That's the runway ahead to start to put things in place. That would involve upwards of 900 people on an annual basis over each of the next 5 or 6 years to get that transmission line in place, connected, and operational. Now, for the three companies, with the information they provided, and I will say we don't have all of the insight into their plans, but what they provided to us would suggest about a little over $2 billion in investment in the three. So obviously, Champion, that would be an all new development, first time production. Takora, having come out through restructuring and sort of reorganization process, are looking to grow production, invest in their facilities, and modernize them and make them more efficient. And IOC similarly would like to increase production, but also look at high purity iron and even low carbon, so green iron product, which would fetch sort of premiums on international markets. So all three, I think, are signaling that global demand for iron from Lab West is in demand. The future looks to be strong going ahead for many years. Due to things like the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, supporting a lot of infrastructure development and the need for construction materials, but also, electrification and transition to alternative transportation and other, buildings and so on are all just, adding fuel to the demand for product from Labrador West. So on that level of investment on the capital side is going to involve about 1,200 full-time jobs in those first 5 to 6 years, and that's each year. That would be the number of workers needed every year to start to transform and get those companies up and running at the levels that they are targeting. And on the operational side, once those are in place, looking at about 1,400 additional full-time jobs in the Labrador West area. Or I should say, to do the work in Labrador West, and in a moment we'll talk about where those workers might be. So the 1,400 workers that I mentioned, we know sometimes can be fly in, fly out, or they can become local residents and settle in the area. And there's obviously a big difference from a local perspective. Having residents contributes to the municipal tax base, contributes to local businesses and demand for local services. Having people stay in the area is a tremendous benefit for stability and growing and supporting the needs of the community, as opposed to fly in, fly out workers, which certainly contribute, but not in the same way, and it can be a little bit more challenging to manage. So what if not all of those new workers, but say half or close to half of them could become residents in Labrador West? So that's, say 600 to 700 people. that would require upwards of 300 homes. It could be in some cases apartments, could be houses, could be a couple different configurations, but in some way supporting an additional 600 or 700 people living regularly in the area. Well, looking at the cost of housing development, and there would be probably a combination of ways to meet that need, from maybe some movement of residents from their existing homes into more community living arrangements, some buildings that could be repurposed or added on to turn into residential developments, some seasonal properties, which if the infrastructure was there, particularly power, could be turned into year-round residences and made available, or in some cases, new land that is available would need to be developed with new homes. So a combination of things all together, around 150, 160 million dollars just to build the home. Not necessarily some of the other infrastructure that would go along with it, but just the house costs or house prices. And over the coming 5 or 6 years, that could put over 100 people, 115 people to work each year, just getting that in place. And then, we don't necessarily think of houses like the same way we do businesses. So this idea of CapEx and OpEx. So, when we think of operational expenditure, it's that once those households exist and they're living in the community and they're spending money, it's those household expenditures, to meet their needs, purchases in hardware stores and restaurants and daycares and, the full range of goods and services that they need, and also paying into municipal government revenues and having local services provided as well. Now we have to be careful because this is so that the right side table and the 376 jobs there are already in the table that I presented for the 3 companies. So it's when those people are hired, if a portion of those live in the area, some of the impacts that we had in that table, could be called household expenditures here. So that's the housing piece, and so the fourth piece is all of the other things, many of which are already under strain. So even today, we recognize, there are issues with travel in and out of Lab West, healthcare needs, daycare, education, needing teachers and resources and facilities and recreation and many other things already needed in the community. And you can just imagine if there are another, 300 families or households, that those things all need attention and need to expand as well. So we looked at how, what already exists in Labrador West would have to, like on a proportional basis, with that housing development, expand. And that looks like about, a 50 or $60 million capital investment to put those things in place over the 5 or 6 years. And then, just in terms of the workers, the jobs, that would involve 30 to 40 people full-time, working at it to put those things in place each year over each of those 5 or 6 years. And as I mentioned, so I don't have the OpEx table here because just like on the household housing slide, it really is already captured in the company impact tables. So back to, this really is the same slide that I showed earlier with the summary numbers, just bringing it back to the 2,000 plus workers highlighted in green on the left that are involved each year for the capital activities that would go together over the next 5 or 6 years. And then on the right-hand side, the 1,400 workers that would carry on after that at the new level of sort of economic activity in Labrador West. And I did highlight the tax impact. So again, thinking about what does this mean for local government, the province and federal government, which will all gain tax revenues from both the capital and the operational activity. And in the next couple slides, I'll just sort of break out the significance of that. So upwards of 350, 360 million in tax revenues being generated from within Labrador West. And because other goods and services are supported from elsewhere in the province, there would be, around 400 million in tax revenues generated throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. So the first thing is, each of those three key indicators, the added value, the GDP, the jobs, and the incomes, just need to be put into perspective. So the added value numbers that I'm presenting here, in terms of the capital, that's about 1.2, little over 1% of Newfoundland's provincial, the entire province's GDP. And on the operational side, it's about 1.7% of provincial GDP. So we're talking about 1 to 2% of the entire province's GDP being added here, in Labrador West. And it's not often that we look at, a development or a close-knit cluster of developments in one area that can really move the needle at the provincial level, that are, going to be noticeable. They're going to make a big, a difference provincially. So that's the first thing to recognize. Those numbers are similar to the entire fisheries, agriculture, and forestry activities in the province. So, if this all comes together, it would be equivalent to adding the fisheries, forestry, and agriculture sectors, doubling them across the province, which is remarkable. In terms of jobs, again, about 1% of all Newfoundland full-time jobs for the capital activities, and just under 1% for the operations that would continue after. And those jobs are, not average jobs. They are very good jobs. So the incomes for, the capital activities, the incomes for those workers are about 28% higher than the average Newfoundland full-time incomes. And the operational incomes are excellent. They're 72% higher than the provincial average full-time incomes. So, certainly, something that makes waves at the provincial level, adds a lot of jobs at very, good wage and salary levels. Oops. The tax numbers I mentioned, could be broken down a little bit. It's not always easy to see what $300 or $400 million in tax revenues can do. Just taking the provincial taxes out of that, on the capital side, that would support about 800 nurses, the salaries for 800 nurses, 350 physicians, or almost 900 teachers. Now it's not all three of those together. But if you think about some of the pressing issues today, our needs in healthcare for nurses and physicians, and school, need for teachers and resource staff. The tax revenues from this development, this opportunity would go a long ways towards helping solve some of those provincial problems and some of the challenges addressing those needs in Labrador West as well. And then on the operational side, it's much higher. So on the order of 5,000 or 6,000 nurses, 2,500 physicians, or just over 6,000 teachers. So these are tax revenues that would really make a big difference in the province and in Labrador West. And I'm just down to really the last slide, which hopefully would lead into the discussions that you'll have after this. It's no small task, obviously, to pull all of these opportunities off. And it takes a number of different stakeholders to get on board in order for these things to come together seamlessly and successfully. So as simple as it is, we're just saying this will require a focused effort and a clear strategy, because the announcements, they certainly give the signal that this could be the time for some of this to move forward. And the time horizon is reasonably good, but 5 or 6 years can go by very quickly. So that's where really focused effort and a strategy that is quick out of the gates, I think, will be needed for a lot of these things to sort of roll out successfully. The coordination, I think everyone involved would know, that these pieces of the puzzle are, dependent on one another. So, what is needed for the community is also needed for the companies. It will help attract workers. It will help, new residents settle in the area, and make sure that daycare, schools, healthcare, retail, and the whole picture can support a new level of activity in Labrador West. And hopefully there's a way to start quickly, with manageable goals, as they say, low-hanging fruit, just to get, to some of those first milestones and targets, get success, and then build momentum from there on. So yeah, I will leave it at that, and hopefully you take away that it is a big deal. It is very exciting for Labrador West. And hopefully, this is the start of, what could be quite a transformation, for community and businesses in the area. And we look forward to what happens next.
Okay, so we're going to move into the Q&A portion of our evening. So if I can just invite, it's been a long week. It's only Tuesday. If I can invite a few people from our chamber board to take to the stage, and Chris, if you want to join as well, I'll just get you. There are enough chairs. So Curtis is going to run around with the microphone. If anybody wants to say anything, make a comment, ask a question, please put your hand up, and he'll come over to you.
So I guess we'll just start out with thanking Lydia for sure, and I know she was a little self-conscious about what she did there, but there was a lot of material, and she covered it, and we all enjoyed that 3 days, and I think it really highlighted how much work there was to be done. So all of the people were there for that period of time, and I think and have been around for the work that we've done in preparing for the next phase, which is just about to start. So if people have questions about where we are and what the chamber is trying to accomplish, we welcome them. Sure. Leon, President of the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Julia Manston, and I'm a director.
My name is Chris DeBow. I'm a colleague of Gregor's, the Wizard of Oz on the screen, with Gardner Pinfold Consultants.
My name is Lisa Parmenter, and I'm the secretary of the chamber, so I'm here to take a few notes this evening, and I also serve pints at Iron Rock.
A quick comment about the Gardner Pinfold work. You know, it was important to us in the very beginning to, to frame the work that needed to be done around the reward that was available at the end to the stakeholders, and it was never our intention, although there was some concerns from our funding agencies, I think, that we were looking for numbers to beat the province up on. And that would be a little bit true, but not really. I mean, at the end of the day, really, there's a huge economic opportunity for the province and to accomplish what the province needs to accomplish. And, if there's going to be 5,000 doctors, well, maybe we could have a few of them. So there is big benefits available, but we need to solve the problems in our community in order for anyone to reap the rewards that are there, because unless we can take our kids to a dance show in St. John's for less than $10,000, it doesn't make much sense in us working for that money, right? So yeah. So boys are there. They'll pass the mic around to anyone who's got a question that we'll try and answer.
You can just put your hand up and we'll come to you with the mic.
It's this one as well. You can press the button, I guess, do you?
You gotta look at Bob.
Okay, it's working. So where do we start? It sounds like the power line is needed to do everything.
To push this, Bobby? I don't know. We've already started as chamber. Where do we start? Really understanding the issues, and I think a lot of times what's happened in the past is that we've said we need Porter to come here and fly out of here. We need PAL to drop the prices. We need whatever it is. Really, doing a little bit of research, we realize that there's steps ahead of that, and that we need to be organized and do that research so that when we do figure out how to get down in front of them, which we have done, we know what our options are in terms of getting in front of airlines and those kinds of things. It costs money, but it's no good to go there without empirical data to say, look, there's this opportunity and this is why you should do this. So where we start, I think, is understanding the problems, and that needs to be done by someone who's not trying to do it off the corner of their desk. And I think that's the other thing that we figured out. Anyone else has a comment?
That was perfect.
Have the municipalities gotten together to make sure there's enough land, subdivisions and whatnot available to accommodate the infrastructure that we need?
Both of them have worked on that. I'm not going to speak to that, but we actually asked them, the municipalities, and we had that data for the summit. And there's certainly a significant amount of land in both communities and opportunities in both communities as is. I mean, we would need more. But, there's enough to start for sure at the moment. You want to speak on that? Yeah.
You can continue if you want, and then I can join in.
The other, I don't know that land is really the thing that's holding us up. I think that, you know, there's a delta between the cost of housing, cost of construction, building houses, and what the market will bear and what the banks will loan money for. And you know, that may not be the only problem, but that's a problem that needs to be solved by all of the stakeholders, probably including the province.
If you look around now, if somebody were to come into town and say, you know, I have the money to build myself a house, is there a subdivision? I don't see it, and I've been here for 60 years. Next question, Wabush Airport. Is there an airport authority there?
No, there's not, and you should, I think, you know, that's something we need to understand, but I think that at the end of the day, you want to be careful what you wish for. One of the things that happens with airport authorities is that they tend to eat up a lot of money and prices go up because of the cost of, and I'm saying this anecdotally, we haven't done any research on that, but most of these organizations have very expensive boards of directors and management, and you know, I know St. John's, for instance, has porcelain tiles in the lobby and things like that. So you know, I'm not sure that would solve our problem of bringing people in, but it might. I mean, that's one of the things. One of the things we've talked about as a Chamber of Commerce is hiring an aviation consultant to tell us, you know, what needs to be done.
You did reference earlier what a great job the Deer Lake Airport Authority did, right? So that obviously, if there's somebody taking care of our airport from a federal perspective, we're going down the tubes. If you need somebody to energize it and be responsible, then that might be the way to go. Back in the day when I arrived here, accommodations for nurses was taken care of by the healthcare system. Accommodations for teachers taken care of by the education and the mining companies who built dedicated structures, housing, accommodations for those people. Over the years, that was allowed to slip. So the comment made earlier about we can't look backwards all the time because that's not working. That did work, and we let that slip away. So maybe there is some things we can look at in a rearview mirror to see what worked and then hold the people accountable to that, to make sure that they're provided. Because nobody should be getting a free ride. The companies that want to come in here now, like a CAMI project, IOC built a town. Wabush Mines built a town. Then CAMI's got to step up and say, we've got to do something to support the infrastructure if we want our employees here. There's no free rides anywhere, right?
I'll take that as a statement, and we all agree on that. I will say that all three companies are at the table talking about how, as in partnership, we solve these problems. And, you know, I think we also have to realize that as Mike McCann said at the summit, you know, they weren't paying $500 million a year in taxes when they were doing those things, and now they are. Iron Ore Company Canada, according to what they presented at the summit, basically paid the healthcare budget of the province last year. So, you know, they may be paying their share, but it may not be coming to us, I think might be the point. I don't know this. Again, this is, you know, stuff that needs to be studied. But yeah, all valid points for sure. Comment.
Mic check? Probably don't need it, as everybody knows here. Now you lost my train of thought because ADHD brain can't go 4 steps ahead, guys. So back to Bruce's question on what the municipalities are doing. Bruce, first, 41 people. Thank everybody for showing up. I see government officials. I see a COA. I see youth here, all well represented, but low numbers again. And unfortunately, back to Lydia's point, I'm pretty sure everybody say they won't see it, didn't see the announcement, and then our good friend Violet and tell them that we'll tell them that you've seen it on Concerning too, though, didn't you? So thank you, Violet, for always standing up for us. I really appreciate it, and thank everybody for showing up on behalf of Mayor of Town Labrador City, on behalf of Labrador West. Thanks for showing up, because it is Labrador West here tonight, for sure, and a lot of community leaders here as well. So from the aspect of the summit, from the Labrador City perspective, coming out of the summit, it was like it was a re-energize and looking forward. I agree with Bruce. You got to look in the mirror as well to see where you come and how far you got to go. We've been a cyclical mining town. We got into a rut, and when you think about what the summit brought, some of the aspects that it brought, it taught us a lot. We can develop land, but we're always afraid. We're very risk adverse. We're scared to do it. But if we sit on the land for 10 years, if we sat on it for 20 years, we'd be in a position to do it now, won't it? So we got to start investing in it. To the point about the mining companies doing it, for those who weren't at the summit, you know, we don't want to be a mining town. We want to be a town with a mine. So where do you get to that point where, so if we say, yes, we want infrastructure from the new companies, we want money from IOC to invest in our community, from the government, that kind of thing, we're still going back to a mining town. Because I can tell you now, if you build an apartment building, they're still going to fly in, fly out. But now they're going to go to an apartment building instead of a camp. But we need to get the next step for us as a community is to bridge off some of these items that have come up. But if you look at it from a social perspective and the crises that are in our community right now, we need to go bigger than that. You've seen the numbers from the government, what we contribute back to the province, what we can contribute back everywhere. We need to grow on that and get the infrastructure money to develop it ourselves and do our thing. And that's what the plan is for these communities. We need to take that money and grow from it. If you want people to stay here, if you want things to come here, 1982 was the last school. All this got to come out of that. 1982 is the last school. Where's the healthcare? Where's all that? Where's the ecosystem from our government to pull all that together and work with the municipalities to get that done? And that's the stuff that's got to happen in order for us to grow and develop from that. If you look at from the land, Bruce, I see 9 advertised this week on big land. I didn't even know, but apparently a company gave them back, so there's 9 pieces of land if someone wants to do it. But if you go back to Toby's point, even when you look at from building anything here, from cottage perspective and everything, it's $650,000 a door. You know what that means? 10 cottages, $650,000 a door. Where does that money come from? That's the cost, a little more in Labrador, right? So it's a lot of money. So the key to the partnership's got to be keen. We had 41 people from our community out of about 10,000 here tonight that we need to lean on the rest of them to help us get there. It's the little things that are going to make a big difference and pulling us all together from a government perspective and otherwise. Today, alone, I know the town of Wabash couldn't be here. They have their municipal leaders at the meetings with ministers. We have representatives with ministers all day today trying to leverage off the stuff that we learned from this summit that we got to move forward on. I'm not good at sitting back and waiting for, Lydia talks about data. I say move. Because some of the stuff we need data, but some of it is also in crisis. We're in a crisis right now. We're in a crisis for seniors housing. We're in a crisis for healthcare. We're in a crisis for a lot of it. Place for healthcare to go within our community to set up is even a crisis. So we all got to pull that together from this summit. You've seen the numbers. So we got to leverage off. We got to be steady lobbying the government. It's no good on Facebook. My door is open all the time, and anybody who knows me, come to me. If you got a solution, we got to be solution driven instead of continually looking at, okay, what's next, and how do we get there? We all have to be solution driven in this community. I appreciate, totally respect everything that Bruce said and every other question. Bruce is right. He's right. But how do we get there? We're not going to do it if we're not solution driven and going after the government's hard at all levels. At all levels. We continually have meetings since we left there, since we left the summit. We got that renewed energy, but we can't let it die. We got 50 before we came here. People couldn't wait for this to happen, and we got 41 here tonight. So it is disappointing. It's totally disappointing. But we can't take the foot off the pedal to keep it going. We got to be transparent. Thank you, Lydia, for coming out. I thought the presentation was great. It was good numbers, and you really need to see it. You really need to share it with the people. Get out and talk to people. Be transparent about it. We're not going to make a difference in this community if we don't stick together. We got a 16-year-old who's going to speak now. She's got a mic there. She knows more about it than most of our community and how to make it happen. So we need to be better from that perspective to go there. From the town of Labrador city perspective, continue to work with the pioneers. We do have community leaders who've stepped forth to see how they can help with housing. There's still talks on the co-op housing with presentations being done. Community Development Corporation is a real big buzzword in the next couple of days, or the next couple of weeks. But I'm telling you, when we put that Community Development Corp out there, or whoever that team is, someone's got to sign up and help. Municipalities wear different hats. They say the mayor is the CEO. Well, there's a whole bunch of different hats. Yesterday, I was terrible mayor because the playground equipment wasn't ready yet. This morning, I was a bad mayor because The roads are still sanded. There's a whole multitude of hats that goes with council. A team of volunteers of 7, and then a management team who's working hard to get stuff done. But these type of initiatives is going to take the community and community development corp type of thing is to get it action and get it forth. Because we can talk about it all day, but if Belinda's name is not on it, that tomorrow her job is to call Yvonne Jones and have a go at her, which I do, then I don't know who it is. But it also could be, I don't use names loosely, but Karen. Karen could step up and say she wants to do that. I'm not suggesting you do, Karen, you do good volunteer work. But that's the stuff we got to do if we're going to make a difference in this community. If I look at talking to other municipalities on what they do across the province, and even in Goose Bay, I mean, there's a community, Chester Street is looking for 200 houses, for 200 families that are misplaced. But they all pulled together and worked hard to make sure it happened, and had an application done within a week, I'm hearing, from their deputy mayor. We don't have the skill set here sometimes, and that's no disrespect for anybody in this room or anybody in this community. The skill set is not there. You know what? It's a good complaint. We haven't had to do it over the years, probably. So we're not good at it. Maybe that's why. I don't know, but we got to get good at it. So we got to find that skill set. So maybe it's some person who just writes applications. I don't know from a volunteer perspective and helps. I know Noreen's not here tonight, but I know from that housing coalition she's on, they do a lot of that work. But we have to, volunteers are getting less and less, but if we don't do it as a community, there's no good to blame the municipal, provincial, and federal. I can guarantee you that, because we have to be on board to make it happen and advocate louder than we ever have on getting stuff for Labrador West. It's out there. The housing stuff is going ahead now. We have a short deadline. The money is disappearing every day. Look, how come this got it? How come Goose Bay got it? How come this town got it? I'll tell you how come, because they got their application in. We don't. Municipalities can't take the money to do some of this work. It takes groups. And that's the stuff we got to pull from here and get everybody together. And I think Community Development Corporation is the biggest way to do that right now. It's done. We've researched it in Cape Breton and other places where you have a Community Development Corp. So it just don't take care of your housing. It takes care of maybe healthcare, and it may take care of daycare. That kind of thing. But that group decides then what it is. And we have to look at be open-minded and think outside the box and move forward to that. We bring good money to the province, but we bring good money to Lab West too. So we got to get there. We have to pull it together internally and make those partnerships. Those partnerships makes a huge difference. But again, got to work together, get the skill set to get it done. Pull the right people in on the right projects and see how it happens from that. Because again, even from a municipality standpoint, if I look at Wabash, look at Labrador City, we also all work. So my 16-hour days are energy draining sometimes. And I don't mind one bit. I go 24 if I thought we were going to get housing tomorrow. Not an issue. I almost done it many times. But it's getting frustrating for me as well not to see it happen, because I have one term left, and in 4 years I've learned it's hard to get anything done. You're learning a lot. But I tell you, we're not learning fast enough and doing fast enough from that perspective. So when we get to these forums and we talk about what we're going to do, we don't have solid actions. It's time to get the solid actions on paper and see what's next for us as a community. So if we reach out for help, the Community Development Corp will certainly be reaching out for help, hopefully in the next few weeks, to get some stuff done and move that forward, right? You know, my regret, I guess it's not a regret, is 3 years ago I didn't educate myself enough to learn about that. And I think as a new council we've learned a lot from that. But the housing is out there, the land is there. And the other piece I really want to say here is from working with companies trying to build, from working with Town of Wabash and here and there's, guys, Lab City Wabash, we're Labrador West. People don't want to, I build a house, but I don't want it in Wabash. I build a house, I don't want it in Lab City. We have to stop being so particular as well. If we want a seniors home in Wabash, it's okay. If that's where the land is, it's developed, and it means we'll get 10 more because the government will give us 10 more, then we really had to be reasonable as well. We certainly have to be reasonable here. We're not in tents, but I'm going to tell you, if we don't smarten up next 5 years, there will be tents on the corner of the booth, the green space, if we don't get it right. So that's my kickoff. Sorry.
So I just want to reiterate everything Belinda just said, except one thing. And we were doing so good, we were on the same page until one thing. And that's that the skill set is here, and that it comes in the form of the young people in our community. It is time to work together. It's time that we move on from Labrador City and Wabash. We are Labrador West. Believe it or not, we're all stuck here together. We're not getting anything from any level of government until we are one united force, we'll say. No level of government, no corporation is going to pay for two towns. It's important that we come together for our future, for your children and my children. My question is, how can the youth in the community help to do this? What can we do to push forward? What can the community do to embrace the young people here? We need to be embraced. It's time to look to me and look to my friends and my peers. Like, I'm not saying vote Leah Patterson 2029. Not yet. She's not saying it yet. But like, is there anything we can do to help? Is there anything that, the municipalities, the Chamber of Commerce, the provincial government can do to allow us these opportunities to help? Like, does it start in our schools? Does it start with pushing the provincial government on the state of our schools? I'm in that building every day, and I wish I wasn't. We don't push hard enough for these things. I was told earlier that I have no problem asking for the things I want, but I don't think it's a want anymore. I think it's a need. I think we need to know what our role is and how we can help you.
All good points, Leah. All we can speak to the people on the stage here is that we saw a need a year ago, really, to get this stuff in the open as a Chamber of Commerce, and so we hired Gardner Pinfold to come up with some economic data. We wrote proposals to different levels of government in order to facilitate the summit. We lobbied the government and the companies to come summit. We would love to have voices from the youth on in our Chamber of Commerce. We have a very inexpensive membership for people who aren't necessarily, IOC, or I think how much is our home-based? $50, but I'm sure our board of directors would come up with a student initiative as well. We need all the voices, and so we're here as the Chamber of Commerce and presenting what came out of the summit because it was our initiative. It's moved on to being an initiative that companies and governments have gotten behind, and over the next few days we'll discuss how it moves forward from there. But having Leah Patterson at the table at the Chamber of Commerce to discuss it, yeah, absolutely, that's a great idea.
Is this still on? Okay. I know we mentioned about collecting data, doing research, and we need this stuff in order to be able to, make these presentations. And I mean, we've got students in high school writing research papers about random stuff that really doesn't matter to them. So is it possible to get them more involved in actual real life community things? So maybe that's something we can try and, reach out to teachers or education systems somehow. Because, I think of even when I was in university and I wrote a research paper at one point. It was socioeconomic impact of mining on small northern communities. But we don't have a university here, so we don't have students that are writing those papers. But, can it be included in high school? I think you guys are probably more than capable of doing that.
And I just have one final thought. I used to say this all the time in my capacity with the church. We could talk about the youth being the future. The youth aren't the future. The youth are the now. And I think that that's a mind switch that we need to start thinking about, especially when we have people like Leah Patterson showing up and having a voice and initiative and wanting to be here. So sometimes just that little mind, they're not the future. They are the now. And not thinking of them as an additive or a future person who's going to benefit, that they're the now benefits.
So Leah, you go see Lydia.
Testing. Yes, there I am. Like you, Belinda, I don't usually need a mic either. Got that modern hockey voice in me. But first off, I want to say a big thank you to Chamber of Commerce. This work that you've done here now on the economic impact of the Labrador West region to the province and to the feds is work that we tried to do on council when I was mayor. had somebody lined up to do the work, and then they backed away from it and nobody would touch it. So kudos to you for pulling it off. Kudos for you for getting the information out there. And even though there's not as many people here as I'd like to see, we can't let this data, this information die on paper. We need speaking points. We need PowerPoints. We need information that young people, older people, every special interest group on housing and healthcare and others can take to the respective federal and provincial minister and start the lobby and the education, because quite frankly, they don't understand that we contribute this much. They really don't understand it at the provincial or the federal level, how much Labrador West actually contributes. And until we educate all of those levels, because let's face it, it's not always the minister who makes the decision, right? The bureaucrats feed the minister. The bureaucrats put programs together. They do a lot of this legwork. We need to educate them, right? We really need to start there. I also like the idea you have the Economic Development Corp, or whatever you want to call it, to do a lot of this work, because speaking as one of those volunteers who puts 16 and 20-hour days in, and often longer, when I was in Belinda's role and others, I mean, we wrote those proposals. That's how we got the affordable housing. That's how we got the childcare. We wrote them off the corner of our desk, our double desk, right? Because we also had full-time jobs. Plus we were full-time parents. Plus we were community leaders. We need other people that it is their full-time job to seek out these opportunities with funding agencies like ACOA and the provincial, other federal government employee groups and provincial, to pick out, to Belinda's point, the various pieces of funding that's out there that we could apply for, that we're not even aware of, right? And I know one of the big eye-openers when we went to Fort McMurray as community leaders, and that was part of the task force. And I'm really happy to see it's going to be reinvigorated again. And it does need a leader, and it needs dedicated leadership there, because they need to be pulling the people to the table always, right? And getting information out and keeping people accountable. And if that doesn't happen, a task force, if you're just meeting for the sake of meeting, that's redundant. That's no point, right? All of us are too busy for that. That's busy work. We need to be getting work, to your point, work plans. And that needs to happen at the task force level as well. And it can be subcommittees of the task force that can be struck to do a lot of that work. So I agree that there are a lot of people in this community that if they were pulled in and had support, could help. And you might have to tap them on the shoulder because they may not realize the talent that they have that we need, right? And that's what, they're not willing to come out to a meeting, they're a bit shy, they're not good with public speaking, but they're really good at report writing. They're really good at putting presentations together. They're really good on social media, right? These are the things we need to do. We got to sell our region. We don't just have to sell it to the politicians. We've got to sell it to the people of our province as well, who we want to move here, right? Because I don't want fly in, fly out for this community. I want people in beds here, living, working, bringing their kids to hockey, right? And doing all of those things that build a community, right? Because in Fort McMurray, it's one of the things we learned. The reason Fort McMurray got a bad name is because everybody was flying in to go to work. They were leaving their families behind. They were missing all their life events. They hated Fort McMurray because it meant that they were away from everything. Here, there's no need for that. If we build the infrastructure, they can be here and be 5 minutes from their families, just like all of us have been for 4 generations.
I just have a couple of comments to make. Sometimes I don't tend to comment too much, considering I work for MP Van Jones, so I try to be careful with my words and everything else. But comments from both my work perspective and personal. So I think Leah in front of me here is phenomenal. There are paid programs. If you want to come by the office, I can let you know about those. Those are with the federal government, and I'd be happy to give you the information for the schools, for the youth. And there is also no youth council here either. So if you want to work on that, I'd be happy to try to form one of those, because I think it's greatly needed. Thank you, Lydia, as always. You did amazing. You are amazing. I was very happy to attend the summit. And as someone who is a newcomer, fairly newcomer, we only moved here 2 years ago. I come from a fly-in, fly-out background in my own work as well as nonprofit. So I can't exactly volunteer on boards, but I have written a lot of proposals and applied for grants and funding in previous hats in my life, so I'd be happy to help with that. And there are a lot of federal funding for housing, for recreation, for all kinds, but it's not going to be on someone's doorstep. Like, nobody's knocking on your door, right, saying, here you go. And that goes for everything in our life. But there is funding opportunities there. So if anyone would like to discuss those further, I'd be happy to help in any way that I can, from a federal perspective, of course, for funding. And I think all of what Belinda said is true. And when it comes to, I have 2 small kids, so we didn't do our homework before we moved, but coming from a fly-in, fly-out background, I was basically a single mom who drove 250 kilometers a day to my job and for my kids to attend a school and their activities, etc. So I basically lived in our car, went through, I don't know how many windshields and sets of brakes. And my husband was never around, and he missed out on many things. He could not get a full-time job on the island. So he was in the States and Manitoba and all over. And when the opportunity came, he just applied for a whole bunch of jobs, maybe like 150 at one point, because he was off work for a year. But he got hired at IOC, and we were so grateful for the opportunity. And we did move here, and I packed the kids in an SUV with some duffel bags. And we're still in the Matthew building, as many of you probably know. But everyone's situation is different, so I'll be I'm kind of being very personal now. But over half of my salary actually goes for childcare. So I put my kids in the after-school program, and I had to wait to actually go back to work when we moved here so that I could actually afford the childcare, because as many people know, there are not many childcare spaces available. And I also dealt with only having one vehicle at first because of public transport. So there are a lot of issues just from a personal, like somebody moving here, from the outside. Didn't exactly do all the homework, but we're loving it. I put my kids in absolutely every activity that I can because it's so wonderful for them, and I think Lab West does a phenomenal job of recreational activities, and there's a lot for young families and kids and stuff, and I'm very happy to be able to do that for them. But yeah, just on a personal point, I'll help in any way I can with funding and all those things and proposals. And Lydia mentioned about, like, when people come, it would be nice to give them something to say, here is what's available. So I'm currently working on a federal directory, of course, for many things in Lab West region, as well as emergency services, the shelter, women's center and stuff like that. But I think that if the provincial counterparts could do the same, and even maybe I could talk with Belinda about municipal. And then I don't use Facebook. I don't have friends on Facebook. But I need it because that's the only way you know what's going on. So yeah, I do see a lot of stuff on Facebook as well. And I'm getting used to being complained at a lot too. So some of that. And I certainly don't mind that either. So if you have any concerns or questions or anything at all like that, I am here in Yvonne's office in the gallery building. But I do think that maybe some of the businesses, if they knew that you would like something like that, then everybody would chip in and be like, here's our contact, this is what we do. And then eventually maybe we could compile it all together somehow.
I think Lydia already has it. I think I saw it already compiled.
That's perfect. Yes. Yeah. No, I think it's an excellent idea to do that. Like, just kind of for anybody who's considering moving here, or anybody who does move here, that this is what's here and this is what you can avail of and do on a Friday night or a Saturday morning or whatnot. But yeah, if anyone wants any any information on anything that was discussed here, any issues, complaints, anything at all, I'm happy to help.
I mean, I think that, just quickly, that the point about the newcomers, and it really came from our discussion with some of the people at the hospital. But, within a few minutes, because, we're doing the magazine and we have some commercial art opportunities or people that we use, it took Lydia very few minutes sitting at the desk there to kind of come up with the start of a document. And I think that's, talking about, doing stuff off the corner of your desk when you're actually being paid for something, and you got that extra few minutes to actually finish it. So that's, I won't say it started, but it's mocked up, and I think we're just looking for a bit of support. But it's not a big project. It's very, but again, very important. A doctor comes to town and we give him a one-page black and white photostated sheet. We don't look like we're trying very hard.
I was once a youth, but it was a long time ago. Listening here tonight, a couple of things that occurs to me. By the way, my name is Peter, and I've been here a while. When I think about it, we've had a good group of champions over the years, and many years, and a lot of them are dying now, or are no longer able to do the things they were doing. So whatever we end up doing here is going to be about people. It's always about people. And we have a syndrome that's going on that's called apathy, and that's always been the enemy of good things getting done. So we need a new generation of champions, and they will come, I'm pretty sure, out of necessity, because that's where we are now. A couple of things I heard earlier. Now, you can't blame it all on government. I heard a mention about schools there. I was involved in schools for a long time, and there was only one school ever built here with public dollars, and that was Mennick in '79. All the other schools were built by industry. And so there's that, but I recognize there's two buildings up on the side of the highway that came after a lot of work. But the bottom line is going to be about people and champions to come forward from any walk of life. Ideas come from anywhere, and so they should. And so we're in this situation now where we have good things going. I mean, the opportunities out there are kind of overwhelming, in the sense that if iron is the feedstock of steel, I see a lot of things getting blown up, so I suspect we'll be using a lot of it in the years to come. But we have to do it in a smart way. And it occurs to me that we have to pull together. Apathy is showing up here in all the empty seats, and that's really unfortunate. But I'll close by saying this. A long time ago, when there was evil in the land in other places, there was someone came and took somebody, and I said nothing. And then he came and took somebody else. And one time, when my turn came, there was no one to defend me. And so we don't want to get back to that kind of a thing anymore. But we have to find new champions with new ideas. The Chamber of Commerce has done a major amount of work here. And we do have the tools. It's just that we have to realize them and fire up people's imagination. I remember being involved in something one time where we had to learn to celebrate uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen, and the future is always a risky place. But you have to take risk if you want to see rewards, and that's where we are now. And I think that we can do this, but we have to do it together, because if not, we will surely not do well alone.
I'll just very quickly say that we do need new champions, but you certainly have some great examples. Peter, thank you for being here.
Sweet. talking about wasting talent, we've got a very smart fellow economist up there, so I thought I'd better ask something about the numbers.
That's a huge assumption.
When you look at those numbers, when someone presents those up to the provincial level, and there's always a question of uncertainty, and they're obviously forward-looking. What's the biggest risk there in those numbers? If something didn't happen, if Champion doesn't happen, if Powerline doesn't happen, is that included in those models, and how?
So the numbers that Gregor presented are based on an assumption that all of those things will happen, right? So, and as I think he said and other people have said, without the power line, none of it happens. I mean, I shouldn't say that because the earlier question about what goes first, I think there are a lot of things, and I'm new to this, but I think there are a lot of things that need to happen regardless of whether this big project happens or not. So, like everybody has kind of said here, there's lots to do, and there's probably places to start in every one of these areas. Housing, I think, in particular. But in terms of risk, it all comes down, I mean, that entire picture comes down to that power line, for sure. Yeah. I think that's the signal that, if that goes forward, then the signal that everything else can happen. Yeah.
Yep, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And last statement is, when you set up this development corp, which great idea, are you going to triple Lydia's salary to run it?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Did you want it?
I mean, just to comment on that, I mean, we don't know what that'll look like or how that'll happen, but one of the things, that we struggled with both at Gateway and Chamber was, the losing the talent, getting someone, and then the big bad IOC stealing them, or, Lydia actually had 6, I think, job offers after the summit. So one of the things that we do realize is that in order to keep the kind of people we need to do this kind of work, yeah, she needs to be paid a lot more money.
I just have a question as well on the economics. We talk a lot about the money we send to St. John's. Has there ever been any sort of study made about how much healthcare is bringing into the province in St. John's? Like on any given night, how many people from Labrador West right now are in St. John's getting medical help? How much is that bringing into St. John's? And if it's bringing in that much, are the politicians really going to be interested in getting rid of that and giving us back some of it? Because it would make a lot more sense to send one specialist here to see 50 people than to send 50 people to see one specialist. And nobody seems to be doing that.
I mean, I think that, that's part of what we need, But
that's never been studied. We don't actually have numbers on that, do we?
No. I thought you were going to ask the question that I've been asking and haven't gotten answered. Thought I was going to get it tonight. And he's going now. Yeah, I mean, I think that what we did learn from the conference that Lydia went to and some of the other things is that communities are very active in those kinds of things in other places, and that we have to be more active. So one of the things that we've been doing as a chamber is just learning kind of what the rules are and what we're allowed to do as a community. We have an allotment for 6 doctors, and I think our ideal is 8. Maybe, is that correct? But to get to the number we really want, we need 15 or 10 or 15, right? I mean, you're shaking your head.
Why wouldn't
yeah.
St. John's people come here to get treated? Why do we have to go there all the time?
I don't know, but I guess the point is what we're just trying to.
The facility isn't there, but it's still thinking outside the box.
Yeah, what we're trying to figure out, I think, as a chamber, and I guess whatever comes after is, so we have an allotment of 8 doctors, but can someone come up here, and we don't even know, can someone come up here and set up a fee for service? And you probably know that, Mike, I don't know. but what are the rules? And, you know, and how do we work within them? And that's kind of what one of the things that needs to be done. And, you know, someone said to me the other day, I forget who it was, I made a comment and they took it to be my answer to be sarcasm, because it was about the new playground and you know, how much, it was actually someone who worked at Grey Rock. And I think they took my comment of, yeah, we deserve the best playground in the country. And they thought I was being sarcastic, but I'm not. We do deserve the best playground in the country, the amount of money that goes out here. And we do deserve the best doctors. And we do deserve, you know, flights that let us get to somewhere else. And you know, and the province and the federal government reap an awful lot of money out of here. And, you know, we should be not living as second-class citizens. We should be, you know, we should be getting extra benefit for doing that work and living here.
Just one final comment, and this is just a comment, it's no big deal, it's just a thinking outside the box thing. I was fortunate to be able to go to Europe for a quick vacation, and one thing that struck me there is the width of the sidewalks. Here we have huge streets, little sidewalks, so couples are walking together, one behind the other. Like if we just added like a foot or two to each sidewalk, wouldn't we be more walkable? So therefore, wouldn't we be healthier? Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's something to think when you redo a street. Why not just make one sidewalk wider?
In our new streets.
It's an idea. It's an idea.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you again to Lydia for pulling off everything so far, and you know, the next couple of days. And you know what, I think Lydia felt very strongly, and I guess the rest of the board as well, or she convinced us that, you know, we were doing this, and it was important to come out and tell you where we were now. It's not really that expensive to do this kind of thing, except bringing our friends in. So, you know, maybe something that we need to do in the future is, you know, a regular up-to-date on the progress of these initiatives. So thank you again.